Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire, the place where hidden treasures, rare coins, and unbelievable discoveries come to life. And today we are diving into one of the most shocking and fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that proves that even a simple pocket coin could secretly be worth a fortune. Because today we are talking about the mysterious and extremely rare 1971 Washington quarter dollar that has been rumored by collectors and error specialists to reach an incredible value of $99 million when the right combination of minting mistakes, rarity, and collector demand come together. And while millions of 1971 quarters were produced at the Denver Mint and most of them are still worth only their face value of 25 cents, a very tiny number of these coins may contain unusual minting errors, metal composition anomalies, or striking mistakes that could transform an ordinary-looking coin into one of the most valuable discoveries a collector could ever imagine finding in loose change, and this is exactly why collectors all over the world carefully check every quarter they receive, because the possibility of finding a rare error coin is always there. And the 1971 quarter has become a particularly exciting coin to search because the early 1970s were a time when the United States Mint was still adjusting to major changes in coin production, especially after the removal of silver from circulating coinage in the mid-1960s, which created many opportunities for unusual minting mistakes and experimental planchets to accidentally enter circulation. And when we talk about a 1971 quarter potentially reaching massive values, one of the first possibilities collectors look for is the chance that the coin was accidentally struck on the wrong metal planchet. Because while the standard quarter of that era was made from a copper core with a nickel-clad outer layer, there have been rare cases where quarters were mistakenly struck on planchets intended for other coins, such as a nickel planchet, a dime planchet, or even leftover silver planchets that should not have been used anymore. And when such a mistake occurs, the coin often shows unusual weight, color differences, or strange edge details that immediately catch the attention of experienced collectors. And if a 1971 quarter were discovered struck on an extremely rare or experimental metal blank, its value could instantly skyrocket because collectors and museums compete fiercely to obtain one-of-a-kind minting errors. Another possible reason a 1971 quarter could reach unbelievable values is the presence of a dramatic double die error, which happens when the coin die used to strike the design receives multiple misaligned impressions during its creation process, causing the design on the coin to appear doubled or even tripled in certain areas, such as the words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, the date, or the lettering on the reverse side of the coin around the eagle design. And while small doubling can be fairly common and may only increase the value slightly, extremely strong and obvious doubling visible to the naked eye can turn an ordinary coin into a legendary rarity that collectors dream about owning, especially if the doubling appears on multiple parts of the design and is well preserved in high mint state condition. And speaking of condition, one of the biggest factors that can drive the value of any rare coin to astronomical levels is the state of preservation, because coins that remain in nearly perfect condition with sharp details, original mint luster, and nowhere are incredibly difficult to find after decades of circulation. And a 1971 quarter with a dramatic mint error preserved in flawless condition could attract global attention from collectors, auction houses, and investors who see such a coin not only as a collectible but also as a historical artifact of American minting history. And another fascinating error possibility involves off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank is not perfectly aligned with the striking die during the minting process, causing the design to appear partially missing and shifted to one side of the coin. And while small off-center errors are somewhat collectible, extreme off-center strikes that still show the date and mint mark clearly can be extremely valuable because they are visually dramatic and prove that the coin was produced during a moment of mechanical misalignment at the mint. And collectors are especially fascinated by such coins because they represent a rare glimpse into the complex machinery of coin production, where even the smallest mistake can create something truly unique. Another important error collectors search for is a clipped planchet, which happens when the metal blank used for the coin is improperly cut from the sheet of metal, leaving a curved or straight missing section on the coin's edge. And when such a clip appears on a coin like the 1971 quarter, it can create a very distinctive look that immediately signals a mint error. especially when combined with other anomalies such as weak strikes or distortion near the clipped area. And while many clipped coins exist, finding one with additional errors or in exceptional condition can dramatically increase its value among collectors. And beyond these well-known errors, there are also more mysterious possibilities that make the 1971 D quarter so exciting to examine, such as die cracks, die breaks, and even the extremely rare cut errors where a portion of the die breaks away completely and leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin's surface. And when such dramatic die damage occurs, it often produces coins that look incredibly unusual and instantly recognizable to specialists who study minting defects. And if such a coin were discovered with a large cut or a major die break along with the Denver Mint mark and the 1971 date clearly visible, it could become one of the most famous error coins from the early 1970s. But the story does not stop there, because another extremely valuable possibility involves coins that were accidentally struck multiple times by the dies, creating overlapping designs or ghost images of the eagle and lettering. And these multiple strike errors can produce coins that look almost surreal, as if 2 or 3 coins were blended together into one. And collectors love such coins because they demonstrate a rare mechanical malfunction during the striking process. And when preserved well, these coins often become centerpieces in major collections, and in some cases coins from the early 1970s have even been discovered with blockage errors, where the design of one coin is impressed backward onto another coin because a previously struck coin became stuck in the die, creating a mirror image effect that looks completely different from a normal coin. And blockage errors are highly prized because they are visually dramatic and extremely rare, especially when the full design appears clearly in reverse. And if a 1971 D quarter with a full blockage and perfect preservation were ever discovered, it could easily become one of the most talked about coins in the numismatic world. And when collectors imagine the possibility of such an extraordinary error coin combined with pristine condition and historical significance, it is not hard to see how rumors and speculation about a $99 million value can spread across the collecting community. Because rare coins are not just pieces of metal, they are stories frozen in time, physical evidence of the minting process, and symbols of how chance and rarity can transform everyday objects into priceless treasures. And this is exactly why coin collectors encourage people everywhere to carefully check their pocket change, old coin jars, inherited collections, and forgotten drawers, because the next legendary discovery could be hiding in plain sight. And while most 1971 D quarters will always remain ordinary circulation coins, the possibility that one rare specimen with a dramatic minting error might still be waiting to be discovered keeps collectors searching year after year, imagining the moment when someone finally finds that unusual quarter with strange weight, unusual color, doubled letters, or an off-center strike that proves it is something special. And that moment of discovery is what makes coin collecting so exciting, because it reminds us that history, rarity, and a little bit of luck can turn even a simple 25-cent coin into a story worth millions. Next, 1979 $quarter coin. Today's story is one that might completely change the way you look at the spare change in your pocket, because we are diving into the mysterious and incredibly valuable world of the 1979 $quarter. A coin that most people think is just ordinary pocket change, but under the right circumstances and with the right combination of rare minting mistakes and unusual production errors, it has been rumored to reach astonishing values approaching $95 million among collectors and investors who constantly search for the rarest and most unusual coins ever produced. And while that number may sound unbelievable at first, the truth is that in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest error can transform a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And the 1979 $quarter is one of those coins surrounded by excitement, mystery, and the possibility of rare minting anomalies that could make it extremely valuable, because coins produced in the late 1970s at the United States Mint were struck in massive numbers across different mint facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet within those millions of coins, there are always a few pieces that escape the minting process with strange defects or dramatic mint errors that collectors dream about finding. And the 1979 $quarter belongs to the Washington Quarter series that first began in 1932, featuring the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse design. That continued until the state quarters program began decades later, and even though the design itself remained mostly consistent, the production process of coins always carries the possibility of mechanical problems, die deterioration, misalignments, and planchet anomalies that create rare variations that collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to own, especially when the error is dramatic, extremely rare, and well preserved, and when we talk about a 1979 quarter potentially reaching incredible valuations, it usually involves a perfect storm of factors including mint errors, unusual striking problems, rare die varieties, and pristine condition that together create a coin so unusual that it becomes a legendary piece within the numismatic community. One of the most talked about possibilities with the 1979 quarter involves dramatic double die errors where the design appears duplicated due to a misalignment in the die creation process, producing letters and numbers that look slightly doubled, especially in the date, or inscriptions like Liberty, or I in God We Trust, and while minor doubling may not create extreme value, a strong double die error can dramatically increase the coin's rarity because it indicates a mistake that occurred during the creation of the working die itself, meaning every coin struck with that die carries the same unusual design characteristic. And when collectors identify a rare die variety tied to a specific mint year like 1979, the value can skyrocket depending on how many examples survive today. And another major factor that can turn a simple quarter into a fortune is the presence of an off-center strike where the coin was not perfectly aligned when it was struck by the dies, causing part of the design to be missing while another part appears shifted toward the edge. And dramatic off-center strikes showing a large portion of blank planchet can be extremely desirable to collectors because they visually display the minting mistake in a very obvious way, especially when the date remains visible confirming the year of production. And in the case of a 1979 quarter, such a dramatic off-center error combined with perfect preservation could create a coin that becomes a centerpiece in major auctions, drawing intense attention from collectors around the world who compete for rare mint errors that almost never appear in circulation. And then there are clipped planchet errors where the metal blank used to strike the coin was improperly cut from the metal sheet, leaving a curved missing portion of the coin before it was even struck, producing a distinctive shape that immediately signals a mint error to collectors. And when a clipped planchet occurs on a quarter with a clear date like 1979, it becomes an identifiable and collectible anomaly that stands apart from millions of normal coins produced that year. But even more fascinating are cases where coins are struck on the wrong planchet entirely, which means the metal blank used was intended for a completely different denomination, sometimes creating quarters struck on smaller or larger planchets with different metal compositions. And when such a dramatic mistake happens, the result can be a coin that is instantly recognized as a rare minting error with enormous collector interest. And while confirmed examples are extremely rare, the mere possibility of a 1979 quarter being struck on a wrong planchet keeps collectors constantly examining their coins under magnification, hoping to discover something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. Another possibility that excites collectors is a broad strike error where the retaining collar fails during the striking process, allowing the metal to spread outward, creating a coin that appears wider and flatter than normal, lacking the typical raised rims seen on standard quarters. And such an error dramatically changes the appearance of the coin, making it highly desirable among collectors who specialize in minting anomalies. And when you combine that with a clean, uncirculated condition, the coin becomes even more valuable because most error coins are discovered only after years of circulation damage, and condition is one of the most important elements when determining the potential value of any coin because collectors and grading services closely examine the surface quality, strike sharpness, and preservation level. And coins graded at the highest levels, such as mint state 67 or higher, often command exponentially higher prices than lower grade examples, meaning that a rare 1979 quarter error preserved in near perfect condition could become the centerpiece of a high-profile numismatic auction, especially if it represents a previously unknown or extremely rare variety. And there are also die crack and cut errors where the metal die used to strike coins begins to crack or break, creating raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface, and these features sometimes appear dramatic enough that collectors immediately recognize them as unique minting artifacts tied to a specific die failure, and when the die damage becomes severe enough to create a large raised area called a cud, the resulting coin becomes highly collectible because it represents a moment in the minting process when the die was failing yet continued to strike coins before being replaced. And the story behind such coins adds historical intrigue to their value because each era reflects the mechanical realities of coin production in a busy mint facility operating at incredible speeds, striking thousands of coins every minute, and even the smallest mechanical misalignment can create a mistake that slips into circulation unnoticed until years later when a collector finally discovers it. And that sense of hidden treasure is what drives the excitement behind coins like the 1979 quarter, because collectors know that rare discoveries still happen even decades after the coins were minted, and some of the most valuable coins in history were discovered long after their production simply because someone decided to look a little closer at what seemed like ordinary change. And when rumors circulate about a particular year such as 1979 potentially producing an extraordinary era worth millions, it sparks a wave of curiosity among collectors who begin searching through rolls of quarters, old coin jars, and inherited collections hoping to find that one rare piece that everyone else overlooked. And the psychology behind coin collecting plays a huge role in value as well, because when a coin becomes associated with a legendary era or mysterious rarity, collectors become eager to own an example of that story, driving demand far beyond the coin's face value or even its metal composition. And auctions become the stage where these stories unfold as bidders compete not just for the coin itself but for the prestige of owning something truly rare, and sometimes the final price achieved at auction shocks the entire numismatic world because the rarity of the coin combined with intense collector demand pushes the price far beyond expectations. And that is how a humble quarter originally worth just 25 cents can transform into a coin discussed in terms of millions of dollars when it carries a combination of rarity, historical interest, dramatic era characteristics, and pristine preservation. And for the 1979 quarter, the excitement continues because collectors still study mint records, die varieties, and surviving examples, hoping to uncover new information about unusual strikes or previously undocumented errors, and each new discovery adds another chapter to the ongoing story of this coin, encouraging even more collectors to examine their coins carefully because the next great discovery might still be hiding in circulation somewhere. And that is why experienced numismatists always recommend checking every detail of a coin, including the date, mint mark, lettering, rim, shape, and overall strike, because the smallest irregularity might reveal something extraordinary. And when it comes to the 1979 quarter, the possibilities include doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, broad strikes, die cracks, cuds, and many other subtle variations that only careful observation can reveal. And while most examples will remain ordinary coins worth face value, the thrill of th. Next, 1987 quarter dollar coin. Today we are diving into the fascinating mystery surrounding the 1987 quarter dollar, a coin that most people have probably seen or even spent without a second thought, yet under very rare circumstances it has been rumored among collectors and numismatic enthusiasts to reach unbelievable values approaching $90 million when certain rare minting errors, striking mistakes, and extraordinary preservation conditions come together to create a coin that is truly one of a kind. And while millions of quarters were produced in 1987 at the Philadelphia Mint, the truth about coin collecting is that not every coin leaves the mint in perfect condition, because the minting process involves massive machinery striking thousands of coins every minute, and even the most advanced equipment can occasionally produce mistakes that slip through unnoticed and enter circulation. And these minting mistakes are exactly what collectors search for, because a tiny error on a coin can transform a simple 25-cent piece into a legendary collectible worth thousands or even millions, depending on the rarity and significance of the mistake. And the 1987 quarter belongs to the famous Washington quarter series, which began in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth and continued for decades with the same classic design, showing the portrait of Washington on the front and the powerful eagle with outstretched wings on the reverse. And by 1987 the design had become one of the most recognizable coins in American history, yet even within this familiar design there were countless opportunities for unusual variations to occur during the minting process. And one of the most exciting possibilities for collectors involves double die errors, which happen when the die used to strike coins is created with a slight misalignment during the hubbing process, causing the design elements to appear doubled or slightly shifted. And when this happens on a coin like the 1987p quarter, collectors may notice doubling on the date, the word Liberty, or the phrase "I in God we trust." And strong double die errors are extremely desirable because they are not simple damage or wear but actual minting variations created during the die production stage, meaning every coin struck by that die carries the same distinctive feature. And if a dramatic double die variety from 1987p were discovered in pristine condition, it could attract enormous attention in the numismatic community. Because collectors love coins that clearly display unique characteristics created during the minting process. And another error that can turn a common coin into a valuable treasure is the off-center strike, which happens when the blank coin planchet is not perfectly aligned between the dies when it is struck, causing the design to be partially missing and shifted toward one side of the coin. And off-center strikes can vary from minor shifts to dramatic misalignments, where a large portion of the coin remains blank while the rest shows the design pushed toward the edge. And collectors especially value off-center strikes when the date remains visible because it confirms the year of the coin while showcasing the unusual mint error in a visually striking way. And a dramatic off-center 1987p quarter preserved in near-perfect condition could easily become a centerpiece of an advanced era coin collection because such coins clearly demonstrate the unpredictable nature of high-speed minting operations. And there is also the possibility of clipped planchet errors, where the metal blank used to create the coin was improperly cut from the sheet of metal before striking, leaving a curved or straight section missing from the coin's edge. And this error occurs before the coin is even struck, meaning the finished coin carries both the missing metal and the normal design in the remaining area, creating a distinctive shape that collectors immediately recognize as a genuine mint error rather than damage. And when a clipped planchet occurs on a well-preserved 1987p quarter, the unusual shape combined with the historical date can create a highly collectible piece that stands out from ordinary quarters. And one of the rarest and most dramatic possibilities in coin collecting is the wrong planchet error, where a coin is struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination, or sometimes even a different type of coin altogether. And when this happens, the resulting coin may have the design of a quarter but the size, weight, or metal composition of another coin, which instantly makes it an extraordinary rarity. And although such errors are incredibly rare, the discovery of a 1987p quarter struck on the wrong planchet would send shockwaves through the numismatic community because it would represent a dramatic breakdown in the mint's production process, and collectors would compete fiercely to own such a unique piece of minting history. And another fascinating minting anomaly is the broad strike error, which occurs when the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails, allowing the metal to spread outward under the pressure of the dies, creating a coin that appears wider and flatter than normal with no defined rim. And broad strikes can dramatically change the appearance of a coin, making them instantly recognizable to collectors who specialize in mint errors. And if such a broad strike occurred on a 1987p quarter and survived in uncirculated condition, it could command enormous interest because error coins in high grades are much rarer than those found after years of circulation wear. And die cracks are another feature collectors look for because over time the steel dies used to strike coins can develop cracks from the immense pressure of repeated strikes, and these cracks appear on the coins as raised lines where metal filled the crack in the die during striking. And while small die cracks are relatively common, large dramatic cracks or die breaks known as cuds are far more collectible because they represent severe damage to the die that still managed to produce coins before being removed from service. And a large cud error on a 1987p quarter would appear as a raised blob of metal along the edge of the coin where part of the die had broken away, leaving a gap that filled with metal during striking. And collectors love these dramatic errors because they provide a visible snapshot of the moment when mint equipment was beginning to fail yet continued producing coins that escaped into circulation. And another possibility involves misaligned die strikes, where the two dies used to strike the coin are not perfectly aligned with each other, causing the design on one side to appear slightly shifted relative to the other side. And this can create unusual rim distortions or design shifts that experienced collectors immediately notice when examining coins carefully under magnification. And Sometimes coins also show struck-through errors where foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, or debris became trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing part of the design from fully appearing on the coin, and these errors can produce unusual textures or missing design elements that make the coin stand out dramatically from normal examples. And while some struck-through errors are subtle, others can create dramatic blank areas that instantly catch the attention of collectors. And when evaluating the potential value of a coin like the 1987 P-quarter, collectors also pay close attention to the coin's condition, because even a rare error can lose much of its value if the coin has been heavily worn or damaged over time. And coins graded in extremely high mint state levels such as MS67 or higher are exceptionally rare because they show almost no signs of handling and retain their original mint luster. And when a rare mint error appears on a coin in such pristine condition, the value can rise dramatically because collectors understand how unlikely it is for an error coin to survive decades without wear, and this combination of rarity, error type, and condition is what creates the possibility of extraordinary values, sometimes discussed in the tens of millions among high-end collectors and investors who view rare coins as historical artifacts as well as financial assets. And the story of the 1987 P-quarter also reminds collectors that valuable discoveries can still happen today because billions of coins continue to circulate around the world and many people never take the time to examine them closely, yet hidden among those coins could be a rare mint error that escaped notice for decades. And countless famous coin discoveries have been made by ordinary people who simply looked more carefully at their pocket change or searched through old coin jars and inherited collections. And that sense of possibility is what keeps the hobby of coin collecting alive and exciting, because every coin carries a story about the moment it was struck and the journey it has taken through history. And the 1987 P-quarter represents a perfect example of how even a common modern coin can become extraordinary when unusual minting circumstances create a rare variation that collectors cannot easily find elsewhere. And as more collectors continue to study the coins of the 1980s, new varieties and error discoveries may still emerge, adding even more intrigue to this already fascinating coin, and that is why experienced collectors always recommend examining coins carefully using good lighting and magnification to look for unusual details such as doubling, misalignment, strange textures, clipped edges, or unusual shapes that might reveal a hidden mint error, because somewhere out there a remarkable 1987 P-quarter with a dramatic minting mistake last 1977 D-quarter dollar coin. Today we are talking about a coin that many people have seen countless times but very few realize could potentially be worth an unbelievable fortune, the 1977 D-quarter dollar, a coin that normally carries a value of just 25 cents, but under rare and extraordinary circumstances involving minting errors, unusual production mistakes, and extremely rare variations, it has been rumored among collectors and enthusiasts to reach astonishing values approaching $88 million. And while that number may sound unbelievable at first, the world of coin collecting has repeatedly shown that small minting errors can transform ordinary coins into legendary treasures that collectors are willing to pay enormous amounts to own. And the 1977 D-quarter is part of the long-running Washington quarter series, which first appeared in 1932 to celebrate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth and eventually became one of the most recognized coins in American history, featuring the familiar portrait of Washington on the front and the powerful eagle design on the reverse that remained in use for decades before the state quarter program began in 1999, and by the time 1977 arrived, the United States Mint had already produced billions of Washington quarters for circulation, including a massive number struck at the Denver Mint identified by the small d mint mark on the coin. Yet within those massive production numbers, the possibility of rare minting mistakes always exists, because coin production happens at incredible speeds with heavy machinery striking thousands of coins every minute, and even with strict quality control, occasional errors slip through and enter circulation unnoticed, and those errors are exactly what collectors search for, because they create unique coins that stand apart from the millions of perfectly normal examples. And one of the most exciting possibilities with the 1977 D-quarter involves double die errors, which occur during the creation of the die used to strike coins, when the design is impressed into the die more than once at slightly different angles, causing certain elements of the coin's design to appear doubled, and when this happens on a quarter, collectors might notice the doubling on the date 1977, the word liberty, or the phrase "I in God we trust." And a strong double die variety is particularly desirable because it is not simple damage or wear but an actual mistake in the die itself, meaning every coin struck by that die carries the same unusual feature, and if a dramatic double die 1977 D quarter were discovered in pristine condition, it could quickly become one of the most talked about coins among collectors because such errors combine rarity with visual interest. And another minting mistake that can dramatically increase a coin's value is the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank, known as the planchet, is not properly aligned between the dies during the striking process, causing the design to appear shifted toward one side while leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the opposite side. And off-center strikes are especially valuable when the date and mint mark remain visible because that allows collectors to clearly identify the coin while still showcasing the dramatic minting mistake. And a 1977 D quarter with a large off-center strike preserved in near-perfect condition would be an extraordinary find because such coins clearly show how a simple mechanical misalignment can create a completely unique piece of numismatic history. And collectors also look closely for clipped planchet errors where the metal blank used to strike the coin was improperly cut from the sheet of metal before striking, leaving a curved or straight section missing from the coin's edge. And when the coin is struck, the design appears normally on the remaining metal, but the missing portion creates a distinctive shape that instantly signals a mint error. And clipped planchet coins are fascinating because the mistake happened before the coin was struck, meaning the coin left the mint exactly in that unusual shape rather than being damaged later in circulation. And if such an error occurred on a 1977 D quarter and survived decades with minimal wear, it could become highly desirable among collectors who specialize in mint errors. And one of the rarest and most dramatic possibilities involves a wrong planchet error where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a different metal composition. And when this happens, the coin may appear smaller or larger than normal or have a different color due to the metal being different from a standard quarter planchet. And such mistakes are extremely rare because the mint carefully separates planchets for each denomination, yet occasionally one slips through, creating an astonishing anomaly. And if a 1977 D quarter were ever discovered struck on the wrong planchet, it would immediately become one of the most significant error coins from that era because it represents a major breakdown in the minting process, and collectors would likely compete fiercely to acquire such a coin if it ever appeared at a major auction. And another intriguing error collectors search for is the broad strike, which occurs when the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails to function correctly, allowing the metal to spread outward under the immense pressure of the dies, resulting in a coin that appears wider and flatter than normal with no defined raised rim. And broad strike coins often look dramatically different from normal coins, making them easy to identify and highly collectible among error coin enthusiasts. And when a broad strike occurs on a coin like the 1977 D quarter and remains in uncirculated condition, it can command significant attention because most error coins show heavy wear from years of circulation, and collectors also examine coins carefully for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the surface of the coin caused by cracks forming in the steel dies used to strike the coins. And while small die cracks are relatively common, large dramatic cracks can create unusual patterns that collectors find fascinating because they reveal the stress that mint equipment endured during production. And in some cases, the damage becomes so severe that a piece of the die actually breaks away, creating what collectors call a cud, which appears as a raised blob of metal along the edge of the coin where the die broke and left a gap that filled with metal during striking. And cut errors are especially collectible because they represent a moment when the die was failing yet continued to produce coins before being replaced. And a large cut on a 1977 D quarter would create a visually dramatic feature that instantly sets the coin apart from ordinary examples. And there are also struck-through errors which occur when foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, or debris becomes trapped between the die and the coin blank during striking, preventing part of the design from appearing on the finished coin. And these errors can produce unusual textures or missing details that give the coin a mysterious appearance that collectors find fascinating. And sometimes the material that caused the strike-through leaves an imprint or pattern that tells part of the story of what happened inside the minting press at that exact moment. And another possible variation Involves misaligned dies where the two dies used to strike the coin are not perfectly centered with each other, causing the design on one side of the coin to appear shifted relative to the other side, which may create unusual rim shapes or partial distortions that careful collectors can detect. And when evaluating a coin like the 1977 D-quarter, collectors also pay very close attention to the overall condition of the coin because condition plays a massive role in determining value, and coins graded at the highest mint state levels such as MS67 or MS68 are extremely rare because they show almost no signs of handling or wear even after decades of existence. And when a rare mint error appears on a coin in such pristine condition, the value can increase dramatically because collectors understand how unlikely it is for an error coin to survive so long without being damaged. And this combination of rarity, condition, and dramatic error type is what creates the possibility of extraordinary valuations, sometimes discussed in the tens of millions of dollars, when a coin becomes famous among collectors and investors. And the legend of a potentially ultra-valuable 1977 D-quarter also reminds us that hidden treasures may still exist in everyday places because billions of coins remain in circulation and most people rarely examine them closely. Yet within those coins could be a rare error that escaped notice for decades, waiting for someone with curiosity and patience to finally recognize its significance. And many famous coin discoveries have been made by ordinary people searching through pocket change, bank rolls, old jars of coins, or inherited collections that had been sitting untouched for years. And those discoveries remind collectors that the thrill of coin hunting is not just about money but about uncovering pieces of history that reveal the complex process behind minting the coins we use every day. And the 1977 D-quarter is a perfect example of how even a common modern coin can become extraordinary when unusual circumstances create a rare variation that collectors cannot easily find elsewhere, and that is why experienced numismatists always recommend checking every coin carefully under good lighting and magnification to look for details such as doubling in the lettering, unusual shapes, off-center designs, strange textures, clipped edges, or other irregularities. The